Come and play outside my dream, outside my dream. You're not really just a fantasy. Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I'm here every Monday to bring you spiritual conversations with exciting and special guests. So you can catch me on WEMS Radio Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'm Grenetta Mason, Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G, your host. And tonight we have a really special guest that we'll be looking at approaching spirituality from a practical perspective and how you can use it in your everyday life. I like to say, how can we use these tools moment by moment? How can spirituality be a part of our everyday life? So I'm going to be here and take you through that process. Now, one of the ways I like to support you is by taking you through the process of finding joy and living your best life with grace and ease. So tonight, we're going to have a very special guest, Karen and Weber. But I have a cute little story I'd like to tell you about last week. You know, I've been singing and I've been doing shows, and you know how you say the show must go on. Well, last week I was on vacation and I felt like the show must go on. So I realized that they did not have internet access or limited internet access where I was. So it was like, okay, they said, oh, we'll take care of you. It'll be fine. We'll do it. And so I'm trusting and using all my spiritual practices as everything is going to be all right and it's going to flow in divine order. So then we go to the show, we go into this town, and guess what? Social distancing. There's probably nowhere for me to go. So we set up this place, we're outside, and we get on, and it's black dark. So I'm freaking out now, right? So my friend walks over, she's with the light. And I'm like, okay, great. So the light comes on and we're rolling, and all of a sudden I'm sweating to death. So if you watch that video, you will see me patting and sweating, but the show must go on. And on top of that, you won't believe the mosquitoes started biting me. I was like, oh my God. So at some point, if you're watching, you'll see me hitting my back, right? Or patting with the thing, because the experience was really interesting. But the show went on and it was a very great show. So I'm here, I'm back in my comfortable space, and I know that you will enjoy the show tonight. And if you like what you see, just follow me as Reverend Grenetta on Instagram and Reverend Grenetta Briggs Mason on Facebook and YouTube. So let me tell you a little bit about Karen and Weber. She's an attractive mindset strategist. She's an entrepreneur, a radio host, and she's a breath applicator. Karen has so many different things that she's done and so many experiences that I'm sure it will be a delight for you to hear how she integrates the mind, the heart, the body, and soul. So I would just like to say that I recently met Karen, and it was a delight because I met her through this mindfulness walk. So I'm happy to have Karen here. Karen Webster, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Reverend Grenetta. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on with you today. This is such an honor and a pleasure, and I'm wishing you luck as you start out on your journey with the show, and I'm so happy for you. It is quite a journey to undertake something like this. So I give you lots of credit and big love for success. So, I'm just here, happy to be here. I've been on a break from the Awaken and Arise experience. I took a break on the beginning of June. And as life would have it, it has turned into a hiatus because I've been called into service within my family at a very high level, which really hasn't left me a lot of time for anything other than dealing with that and taking care of myself, which is really, really, really important when we're
Mhm.
talking about spirituality and holistic health and wellness. Being able to take care of yourself is critical. So this is the first time that I'm like on doing anything. I did a quick video on my page about 15, 20 minutes ago, letting people know that I was going to be here with you
Mhm.
tonight. And wow, I mean, what do we say about 2020, right?
No,
It's, and it's not done with us yet.
no,
And
no.
there is a lot going on both a micro level within us personally and on a macro level within the world.
Yes.
And what I've experienced this year is the turning of my world against the turning of the outside world. So
Hmm.
a lot of friction, and a lot of people are having these experiences right now. And it has been um, eye-opening and awakening on so many levels. And it's afforded me, doing the show has really afforded me the opportunity to come in contact with and meet so many amazing people like yourself and work with people.
Yeah.
I love the work that I do and love doing readings and supporting people in that way. Did it just start raining?
I
Oh
don't
my
know.
goodness. It's like pouring outside. I was
They
like,
said
wait a
that's
minute, what is that
why.
noise? It's pouring. It's pouring. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm happy to be here. I miss doing the show, but I am gonna be coming back in September,
Cool.
God
So
willing.
as I looked at everything that you've done, can you walk us through what the attractive mindset strategies like define that for us? Because it's pretty interesting to see that you're working it in life, love, and business. And can you talk about that first?
Yeah, so the attractive mindset is something that I conceived around how do we get from where we are to where we want to be in our life, right? So here I am, I have these challenges, I have these obstacles. How do I move through them and get to a place of higher learning, growth, better experience, right? Expanded
Mhm.
experience. And it is about the mind, but the mind is also connected to the body and the spirit.
Mhm.
So when we are talking about an attractive mindset, it's not just about what you're thinking, but it's about what you're doing. And it's about what you're feeling in your life, because these are not three disconnected buckets. These are, divinely entwined and integrated. And once we begin to understand how these things
Mhm.
work, then we're able to really approach our lives from a more
Mhm.
practical way and a strategic way. So I really position myself as a
Mhm.
strategist, and I use a holistic, intuitive approach to working with people because we're all different. And I work in the areas of life, love, and business. So in life, I mean, what we're experiencing right now, this would
Mhm.
be, people have experienced grief, they've experienced loss, they're experiencing great foundational change, not just like, oh, this happened, that happened. I mean,
Mhm.
major shifts, seismic shifts. In dating, uh, I kind of fell into the dating experience about 7 years ago with the online experience and had my own challenges trying to figure this thing out. And I'm a creative problem solver. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be a reason why this is so challenging. What is it? So I really applied myself to that to find out why some people were having like a really great time and enjoying their dating experience, and not necessarily in a relationship, but the dating experience, which is different from a relationship, and why some people were really hating their dating experience. Like it was horrible. So I set out to figure out how to take it from dismal to divine. You know, how do you get from that place where it really sucks to this place where it's like, yes, I'm really enjoying this.
So,
And business,
the,
yeah.
one thing that I think would be really interesting too is as you talk about it, like, you know, how people want tips in getting started in using these things that we have. So if you could highlight some tips just to get started in using this attractive mindset, I think that would be really good for the
Mhm.
audience.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the first thing you have to do is understand the relationship that you and your body has to the world.
Mhm.
And so I like to say, think of yourself as a plant, right? What do we need physically to support ourselves? And there's some really basic things like sunlight for
Mhm.
energy and vitamin D. We need water,
Mhm.
we need air,
Mhm.
and we need earth, right? And we also need food, but we need those four things. And it's interesting how we don't really think about it critically. So with water, people drink, but are you drinking enough water? Our body is 70% water. And if we're not drinking optimally half your body weight in ounces, right?
Mhm.
Now, if we're
Mhm.
not doing that and we're just having a glass or two of water a day, and tea and soda and other liquids don't count, right? So if we're only drinking a couple glasses of water, that means that we're chronically dehydrated. That
Mhm.
means we're pushing through from one day into the next day, into the next day, into the week, into the month, into the year, chronically dehydrated. And then we look in our life experience and think, well, why, am I feeling tired? Why am I not sleeping? Why am I so irritable? Why am I having so much trouble concentrating and focusing and hating my job? Like when we understand that something like job dissatisfaction or not being able to sleep at night can be tied back to very simple components like drinking enough water or
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
getting enough sunlight and being outside. How do
Mhm.
we ground ourselves, take our shoes off, be in connection with the earth? And air, breathing. You mentioned I'm a breath advocate.
Mhm.
So, you know, breath is CPR for the soul.
Mhm.
And once we learn how to use it, because we're unconsciously breathing all the time.
Mhm.
We don't
Mhm.
plan our next breath. "Well, I'm going to breathe at 8:01. We just take
Right.
it,
Continuous.
right?
Right. Right.
But
I
then
like
we,
the I like the idea of you're saying connecting the body and what you eat and everything to how your life is. So you connect the drinking of the water and taking care of the body with the impact in your life, right? And we are, I like that idea of talking about what kind of success strategies can we give people when we're like, even now we're saying like, oh, people are going through a lot right now, really devastating things, right? And so we talk about, what kind of success strategies can we give them based on
right,
using the attractive mindset, philosophy, or tools.
right. So the first thing I would say is think of this as we need to develop, right? We need to
Okay.
develop our attractive mindset. So it's not like you can just go pluck it off the shelf. You have to
Right,
develop
right.
it, right?
Okay.
And so when we think about developing anything, there's a strategy. So if you wanted to lift 1,000-pound weight in a contest and
Mhm.
you've never lifted a weight before, you're not going to walk into a gym and walk over to the
Right,
1,000-pound weight and try and pick it up, right? Because then
right,
you kill
right,
yourself. right?
Yeah, right.
So what you do strategically is you start with the 5 pound weight and you do a lot of reps
Right.
consistently.
Yeah.
Consistency cannot be underestimated.
The
And
big
then
one.
you move to a 10 pound, a 25, a 50, and you keep going, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the approach. So the daily practice,
Mm-hmm.
your daily practice, mental, physical, spiritual, becomes the framework that you use to build. So think of it as a scaffolding. You know, when they renovate a building,
Mm-hmm.
they put a scaffolding around the building to
Right, right,
support
right.
all of the workers doing their thing, and then comes down and new building, right? So think of it the same way. Your daily practice is the scaffolding and the structure that you use to support what you need mentally, physically, and spiritually. So that would include things like your breath work, your
Mm-hmm.
meditation,
Mm-hmm.
whatever vitamins and supplements or foods that you
Mm-hmm.
need to
It's a
eat.
combination of
This
all of
would,
that.
it's a combination. What are you reading?
Mm-hmm.
What are you watching? Are you bringing content in? Because it's all about your vibration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your energetic vibration. And people always say, well, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And your
They just,
vibration is really coming from your heart level. Where are
mm-hmm.
you feeling? So sometimes we're radiating resentment,
Yeah.
sometimes we're radiating joy,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's peace and acceptance and
Mm-hmm.
love, or maybe it's shame and guilt. So whatever
Mm-hmm.
that is, that's our vibration.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say, oh, I could tell your energy is low, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
in that moment I may be orbiting around a particular feeling that is of a low vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, this is where the law of attraction comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you're vibrating, that's what comes into your experience. So
Exactly.
whatever is at that frequency you're
Mm-hmm.
matching, you're going to get
Mm-hmm.
more of that. So if you're not
More
having
of
a good
that.
time and
Mm.
you're having that pity party and you're just taking a bath in your sorrow,
Mm-hmm.
then more things to be sorry about are about to show up, because it's like you're inviting them in. And in
Mm-hmm.
those instances, I like to offer people the tools, what I call a rope of hope. Like, so how do I, a rope of hope, right? So if I'm in this low vibration right here
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling sad and upset and all this other stuff, how do I move myself to a higher vibration, even if it's just for a few minutes?
Mm-hmm.
How do I
I
get
like
there?
that. Yeah, a rope of hope because I use for me it's like find a moment of joy. Because
Yes.
if you could shift that thought, if you could create any little moment of joy, then you will find yourself moving from that. So I like that analogy of a rope of hope because it's just something to shift you. So it's like what kind, and sometimes you're in these places where it's very difficult. But I like what you said about consistency, and it's all a practice. When we think of practice, we're always talking of continuously practicing so that the consistency supports and really getting to the place that you want to be. And I noticed, I mean, I read a lot about the different things that you do, and I noticed you have something called Holy Spa.
Holispa.
Holy Spa. Like it's, can you?
Holispa. So yeah,
Holy,
so Holispa. Yeah,
yeah.
so it is sort of a holistic spa is kind of
Mm,
how the name was born. But
okay.
Holispa is more of an approach. It's a
Mm,
philosophy. So Holispa is the actual application that we use to develop into the attractive mindset.
okay. Okay.
And holispa is yeah, so it is mental, physical, and spiritual. It involves the work I do doing soul contract readings and soul print readings.
Mhm.
It involves physical, we talk about your physical experience, we talk about your spiritual experience, and we focus very closely on the daily practice. because if we're only looking at one thing in your life, like I have a pain in my knee, so I'm applying all this physical cures or treatments to my knee, but I'm not looking at the real reason why my knee is hurting.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing other things to support that, like drinking enough water, like getting enough air in my body. So we have to understand that if something is out of balance in one place, it's because there's something out of kilter in another. So Holispa is the framework. I can work with them. I have 2 and 3 month programs. I also do readings within that, and I also host retreats that we kind of bring all of this together. And I also I have a network of holistic providers. So if I'm working with a client and they're having physical ailment, I can refer them out to a chiropractor or a acupuncturist. Or if they're needing some deeper spiritual work, I work with biofield tuners, people that do soul clearings. There are all kinds of things that go in. So it's about bringing all of it together in a thoughtful way.
That's great. I like that you focus on the entire mind, body, and spirit. So, and it's a combination of all of that.
Yes.
You talked about soul readings and soul contracts. Can you talk a bit, because you offer that, can you talk a bit about what that is and how that supports us to have a soul contract or soul print reading?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And when I came in to understand soul instinctually, that this was something I was going to use with my clients, because what it is, it becomes a starting point for both the client and myself to understand and reveal what I call their spiritual DNA. So you can take, like right now, everybody's doing ancestry tests, right? So they're getting ancestry.com or 23andMe or whatever, and they're taking these tests and they're finding out where they're from, right? I'm so much this and so much that or whatever. So the same thing from a spiritual perspective. What is your spiritual energetic DNA, right? What makes you you? What makes you want to be a comedian and have the talent for that, and be in your spiritual consciousness and want to even bring those two together and bring them to people? What makes you who you are, me who I am, and somebody else want to be a concert pianist or a doctor, right? So when we start looking at who people are.
Yeah, you're muted. You're muted. Can we unmute her?
Can you hear me?
Okay, you were muted.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
You were muted.
Okay. I
Now,
was muted. Okay.
yeah, you had put yourself on mute. Oh, we were like so into it. What you say?
I was muted the whole show.
No, not the whole show, just the last part.
It's like, what?
No, just the last 2 seconds.
I was like, good night.
The soul contracts and yo, that's where we were. Everything else we got, right?
Okay, so you got the part about the spiritual DNA?
The spiritual DNA, yes. So we're on to, this, you're talking about the soul contract. So I'm curious.
Okay.
So how do you get to that though? What's the method? Is there a particular ritual, a particular conversation, or how do you create this?
Right. So the soul contract is a modality based in Hebrew mysticism. And it uses the numbers from the tree of life. And it's based
Okay.
on the vibrational frequency of the sound of your birth name as it appears on your birth certificate. Very specific. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about sound, right, and you're looking at like even your voice on a recorder, you can see where it goes up and it goes down. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a frequency to the
Mm-hmm.
sound. So the sounds carry energy. And in soul contracts, we understand that your soul, before it becomes physically embodied or incarnated, chooses its experience. So a soul will say, I want to incarnate again to experience or learn this. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that through these people. So we pick our parents.
Right.
We pick our situation. I'm going to be a man, a woman, black, white, Indian, live wherever. We kind
Mm-hmm.
of set ourselves up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
birth ourselves into a particular situation for the purpose of catalyzing learning and experience, right? So when we look back and people, particularly people, and most of us, have
Mm-hmm.
some sort of childhood issue,
Mm-hmm.
childhood either trauma or hurt or something, and we look back and sometimes we're blaming people and
Mm-hmm.
we're unforgiving of certain people. And then when we have a soul contract, we gain, as part of the attractive mindset, we begin to understand why things happened. So if my
Okay.
soul
Mm-hmm.
chose, my parents chose to be me, there must have been a good reason. And when we do a soul contract reading,
Mm-hmm.
this is what gets revealed. So we understand from both a physical and a spiritual perspective
Mm-hmm.
what your challenges are,
Okay.
what your talents are, and what your goals are, as well as why your soul came here in the first place. Like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. And so you would
So,
say that would then support you along your journey. So, okay, so we get the soul reading, and from the point of then using that information and then taking it to the next level. So, I understand everything that you're saying, it's pretty clear. So, afterwards,
mhm,
what is like the success of it? How do we use it as we go forward? That would be
right.
interesting.
Right. So when I do readings with people, it's I do them on different levels, but it can be quite comprehensive. So they get a complete write-up, and I encourage clients to reread their contracts, to continue to familiarize themselves with their own energies and gain more insights. And then when I'm working with a client over 2 or 3 months in Holispa, the soul contract and the soul print reading become the foundation. So from there, if they come into me and say, I'm having this problem, right? And then we do the soul contract and the soul print. Now we find out why this problem is occurring. And then we begin to form a strategy as to how to begin to unpack and address that issue so that it can be resolved. So the
So let me
soul
just ask you
contract
one
is a
quick
mapping tool.
okay, one question,
I'm
Kat. Okay, so the soul contract, and then we'll go. I just want to get some clarity around you ask
No,
certain
absolutely.
questions. You ask certain questions, or do you intuitively know some things, right? So for me, I understanding getting to the soul contract. Um, we could come to you and get it. That's the thing I'm thinking of. So
Yes.
just
Yeah.
a little bit of clarity around getting to the soul contract. And then I do understand how to use it.
Right.
Understanding all of those things can support you in living your life on purpose without a whole lot of stress, not running up on things, and find all that joy I talk about, right? So I
Exactly. Exactly.
right.
Well, the soul contract is like a revelation.
Mm,
It's like
mhm,
somebody showing you the truth about how you came in and who you came in as. And the way it's done is once I have the birth name, I analyze the birth name, and there is a science to that. And it
oh,
comes
okay.
up with, and there is a science that says these are what your numbers are. So that's the
And so
science.
it's with numbers. Okay, right. Because
Right.
I guess I had missed that part. I remember the birth name part, but I didn't get the next part. Okay, so
Right.
these
So it's
numbers
based on,
here.
yes, the numbers in the tree of life.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Right. So there are 22 numbers in the system and 7 numbers in a chart.
okay.
And then my job is, once I get the numbers, now the art of it is to interpret that. And so your
Mm-hmm.
question was, is any of it intuitive? And yes, some of it is, because
Okay.
my job is to be able to understand and tune into the client, understanding the energies and the potentials
Mm-hmm.
where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing what it is out of all of this stuff of possibility, what is the thing that they need? Like, why
Mm-hmm.
are they here? And what is the thing? So that's where the intuitive piece comes in.
So I ask everybody that comes on about their childhood spirituality and what that was like and how it informs who they are now. Is it different? So give us a little bit about your childhood and how you've evolved to this whole spectrum of spirituality, because it's really great.
That's a really good question. So I was born to, both my parents are from Jamaica,
Okay.
and they came to this country in the 50s. I was born here in the 60s. And I grew up Catholic.
Mm.
And that was the thing. And I never really quite felt connected to it in any way.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't particularly religious, in a sense, other than we would go to church, and do the things you do. You go to church, you have Easter Sunday, you make confirmation, you make your
Yeah.
communion. But when I became a teenager, I felt completely like, I don't get this. Like, what are we doing here? And I announced one day to my mother, I think I was 16, I said, I'm not going back to church. And she looked at me like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I kind of am. Right. So it just did not resonate with me. And
Mhm.
then about 20 years later, I explored again, and I became a part of a Presbyterian church.
Mhm.
And the experience was good, but there was still something missing for me.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
wanted the pureness of the connection. And what, for me, a lot of the stuff that surrounds it, all of the political, social
Right.
stuff that goes on.
Mhm.
It just was a distraction for me. And I was like,
Mhm.
I just want to connect in and really get this. So I walked away again.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And in my life, I've always been a little different. So usually when everybody, the crowd, is going over here, I'm usually the one that's like over there
Mhm.
checking out something else. So I've always been a little different than a lot of people, which it was very isolating and was challenging in a certain way. But I became involved in the fashion industry. That was my chosen vocation. I was very much into fashion when I was young. I learned how to sew when I was 12. And, I had this career in jewelry for 30 years. And then
Mhm.
5 years ago, like so many people, got disrupted out of an industry.
Mhm.
And the company was like, we're going to pivot and move in another direction, which basically made me obsolete. It's like, you don't need
Mhm.
me if you're going to go do that. So
Yeah.
then I'm now 53 years old and trying to figure out, what do I do now?
Mm.
And I knew for sure I did not want to do what I was doing. It just didn't hold for me any sort of purpose or reward or joy. It was just, I'd done it. There was nothing left for me to get out of it. And I knew I wanted to help people. I'd always been involved and interested in health and wellness when my father became ill, in the 90s. And
Mhm.
so I knew I wanted to do something with that.
Mhm.
And with that thought, I just started moving forward. And I can't even explain how all this unfolded,
Ah,
but
right.
I will say that I believe, because I chose my heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to receive divine guidance and be led
Right.
to what was for me.
Mhm. I like
Because
that because it reminds
yeah,
me of following. It's like your inner guides are always there to support you, and it's in your heart, you know, that you know how to follow and that you listen, right? So I
mhm,
like that being the heart centered part of the whole thing, right? It's interesting too. A lot of people that have been on the show talk about their experience of religion and then moving into something that resonates more with them. I grew up and I sang in gospel choirs always, even now, right? But at the same time, I approached Christianity from like a new thought perspective
mhm,
more, and it created understanding more about Christianity and Jesus from the perspective of how to apply it in every day. Then, as an interfaith minister, I learned about all religions. So it really gave a perspective on a lot of different spiritual practices, different religions. And I feel like it opens up to be able to explore something different. You know how if you walk away from something, what is it that you're walking to? And we all have this like feeling of there's something spiritual that we need. There's some grounding in spirituality or whatever that we need. So one of the things I also like to talk about is, can you talk about the top three spiritual practices that support you every day? Because I really want people to understand that spirituality is always in everything that you do, but making it practical. Sometimes it could be this thing up here where people don't know how to apply it in their everyday life. So, what would be your top
mhm.
three things that you would say have supported you along your journey?
Wow. Well, I would probably say self-care, right?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
really focusing because you can't, taking care of the body calms the mind. And once the mind is calm, it's able to open to spirit. But if
yes.
the body is in tension, if the body is in pain, I'm not saying you can't do it, it's just harder. So I like to start with let's take care of the body, right?
Yeah.
Because this is
Mhm,
what keeps us here and anchored and present in this world. Sleep, all that's
mhm,
everything that goes along with self-care, including, and I will call this out because this has really been critical for me during this difficult couple of months,
mhm.
is salt baths.
Mm,
Doing having a salt bath, and there are many different types of baths you can do, but
mm.
in particular using doing baths with using different types of salts, and I'm working now on some recipes that I'm going to be sharing with people, but
What does
I
that do?
literally
How does that support you? What is the salt bath? You know.
clearing and cleansing,
Mm,
clearing and cleansing,
mhm,
on a mental, physical, spiritual perspective. Mentally you're relaxed, you're in this tub of water. Physically the salt is detoxing, and
okay.
spiritually you're able to open because you literally feel lighter. Like I started doing it, and I was telling somebody else, I said in the last 6 weeks I've either had a full tub bath or a foot bath with salt
Mm,
every night except
mm,
one in six
mhm,
weeks. So I've really made that now a part of my routine,
mhm,
right? So that's something that is non-negotiable for me right
mhm,
now.
mhm.
My breath work,
Okay, breath. Mm,
right?
mm,
And meditation,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Very important. And then spiritually, just taking time to really connect and into being grateful and recognizing that, we're not alone.
mhm,
We have a spiritual team that is working with us. That includes not only the Creator and God, but it also includes, our archangels. It includes our spirit guides and our guardian angels, and it includes our ancestors who are also here and present and, rooting for you and helping to guide you. And when you're able to invite, welcome, and embrace them into relationship with you, you can really experience a new level of connection and strength to move through life. So those are the three things.
At the
Yeah.
top of the show, when you first came in, you spoke about and we talked about now in these times, right? And people are really, really going through a lot, and we talked about as you spiral down into negativity, you might stay down there. And so for me, too, also during this time, I'm trying to think, how can I support? How can I support, right? And one of the things that came and that I'm doing also is like healing circles, right? Because there are some deep, deep wounds and some deep things that we have to heal. And when we talk about getting in touch with our mind, our bodies, healing is one of the things that I think is quite important. So I recommend that during this time, people find places to have conversations, to talk about what's going on, to release whatever is going on. And people, we recommend meditation, journaling, and all those things, but sometimes that's hard. So, what kind of practical things will you suggest for now, that people can like get to quickly, and not like this big, huge process, but like today, what can I do to support me in moving forward?
Well, there's two ways. There's the way that says I want to do it, but I'm not doing the things I need to do. We have to make a decision, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a practice. And I was talking to my mom the other day and she said, "Oh," I said, "Are you doing the thing?" She says, "Oh, I did it for 2 or 3 days and then I stopped." And I said, "Okay, well, that's a good start. But if you're not doing it consistently, right? So just make a decision to be consistent, even if it's just one thing." I
Mm-hmm.
like to focus on breath. We do it all day, every day. All you have to do is learn to do it in a conscious way, and you can really evolve into a new level of experience in your body, your mind, and your spirit, because breath is CPR for the soul. So that would be one. I use essential oils, and that
Mm-hmm.
is a really quick way. I mean, I have like, I don't know, I'm always surrounded by bottles and bottles of oils.
Right.
So
I like them
I like to incorporate the oils in my breath practice. So I
too.
use
Mm-hmm.
frankincense and lavender in my
Mm-hmm.
breath practice with my meditation, or just use it, just inhale it, just keep it by
Yeah,
your
that's
bed,
right.
use, right. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
something
some
quick.
good one. I have some great combinations that they put together. Like I use something like peace and elevation.
Yes,
And
yes,
when
yes.
you use them, you actually feel the
Feel it.
calmness and the
Exactly.
peace and all of that comes with that. So I
Hmm.
like the oils too. And I think the breath is really important because it's so easy. You could do it anywhere. It's not like you have to
Right,
figure out this whole place or thing to go. You could just take a moment and take a breath. And breath
right.
work works like always. I went back today for the first day at work, and it's so crazy because I couldn't get in, and I'm just panicking, and I'm calling all the tech people, and I spelled my name wrong, right? So just one thing like that, right? And I just had to step back, just breathe for a moment and look at it. But I could do that. I didn't have to go through a lot of things because then time was pushing. But I like the whole idea of the breath work. So it's been so great. Is there anything I want to give you a chance to talk about? Anything in particular that you wanted to talk about, and to
Hmm.
also, let people know how to get in touch with you. And yeah, anything you
Okay.
wanted to
Well,
talk about? Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing to that list.
Okay.
Sound,
Go for it.
sound and music,
Oh, yes.
right? So we always have our phone with us, right?
Mhm.
So I have a playlist for my bath, I have a playlist for meditation, I have a playlist for my happy place music. So
Mhm.
I have certain songs that I can play, and it doesn't matter. As soon as I hear that song, my energy
Yeah.
shifts,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
that's something really easy. So
Yeah.
use your senses, right?
That's
So
cool. I
use the
love that.
essential oils, use this,
Mhm.
there is, those are my go-tos.
Yeah, those
So,
are really
and
good.
yeah, yeah, they are. They're great. And
Mhm.
that they are, like I said, they're my thing. And then just eating healthy. But I want to thank you so much for having me on. And I really appreciate the conversation with you and getting to see you again, because I haven't seen you in a while. And as far as how people can get in touch with me, I'm on Instagram at Attractive Mindset Strategist, and the same on Facebook. They can also email me at theattractivemindset@gmail.com,
Mhm.
or they can reach out to me via text at 347-688-8074. And I think those are all. And my website is under construction right now. But I am working with clients actively doing soul contract and soul print readings, which is just an elevated version of the soul contract.
Mhm.
And yeah, just
So, what's
here.
also interesting is I am supporting people in creating what I'm calling a spiritual toolkit. So, when I talk about the different spiritual practices, and it's been really fascinating to talk to each guest about the spiritual practices that they use, and supporting people in creating a personal toolkit, because there's so many different spiritual practices that are out there. You can find the ones that are personal to you. So I appreciate the practices that you brought up, because what I like about them is they're right at hand, they're easy, like pick up some oil, right? Take a breath, right? Listen to some music. Those are practices that you can do in the moment. And that's what I'm saying, moment by moment. What are some of the things that make spirituality practical? So I do appreciate those things, and I hope that people can add them to their personal toolkit. So it was really great, great seeing you and having you here tonight. And hopefully, we'll get to do a mindfulness walk before the winter.
I know. Maybe this weekend. We'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see how the weather is. But thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
This was
thank
great.
you.
It
It
was
was
good.
a great show.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks. I'm just like getting used to doing this again. So this was good.
yeah, so we look forward to you doing your radio show. And what you're going to go back to Awake and Arise? Is that what it's called?
Right, the Awaken and Arise experience. And
Okay.
I'm also working on editing shows now to air on WHCR. So I have a 6 to 8 a.m. time slot there every Saturday morning. So I'm working on getting some new shows in there as well, so people can tune in. 90.3 FM.
Yeah, that's the Harlem station, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
WHUR. Yeah.
Yeah,
WHCR. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
it's been so
right.
long. WHCR a city college. It's a
Yeah,
city college
I said it.
station.
Okay.
Yes.
Right,
Right here in
right,
Harlem.
right. Cool. All right, so have a good evening, Karen, and I'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you so much. Have
Okay,
a good
bye.
night.
You too.
Bye.
So, thank you everybody for joining me tonight for Conversations with Reverend G. And I had a great time tonight guiding you through this process of finding joy and living your best life with grace and ease. So tonight, I'd like to leave you with a mindful moment. And what I thought was really great was we talked about the law of attraction, and the mindful moment that I wanted to leave with you tonight is about the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is focusing around positive and negative thoughts. So the way it works is if you are having positive thoughts, then you will attract positive things. If you're having negative thoughts, then you will attract negative things. And you wonder what attract means. It means energetically. And we talked tonight about the energy that you put out. And we talked about how that energy that you have can bring people in, it can repel people, or then you can flow into others' energy. So when we talk about that, that's what we're talking about when we talk about the energetic flow. So if you're having positive thoughts, then you will attract positive things to you because the energy you're putting out. And we also talk the same thing about negative thoughts. So the law of attraction is about how do you improve your health, your wealth, your entire life using the concept of the law of attraction. And there are a couple of things about that. And it's one of those practices too, because there's also feelings. So they go together. The thoughts that you keep and the feelings that you have are a combination of the energy force that you put out. And so if you always remember that the energy that you're putting out is what you will attract. A lot of times we like to say something outside of us is going on, and then if we can really take responsibility for, creating what it is that's going outside of us. So we really have to continuously pay attention to how we're feeling, which will inform us to what kind of things we're attracting. So it's interesting to be able to follow your thoughts because you have so many thoughts going on. So it's a practice too to really figure out, well, what am I thinking? But one way that you can know how your thoughts are going are by the results that you're creating. If you're finding a lot of negativity around you, then you can understand it. But if positive things are happening, you can feel that you're in that positive wavelength. So that's a little summary on the law of attraction. And I hope you guys can use that process of watching your thoughts and knowing that positive thoughts attract positive things and negative thoughts will attract those negative things in your life. So we always want to find a little joy no matter where we are. So I'm Reverend G, and I'm hosting Conversations with Reverend G every Monday night. And I hope you'll continuously join us so that you too can create your spiritual toolkit and you can learn how to live your life with joy, living your best life with grace and ease. And grace and ease is the key. So thank you tonight. And you can find me on Instagram as Rev Grenetta and as Reverend Grenetta Briggs Mason on Facebook and on YouTube. It's been a great night. I hope you guys got some of the best information that you could use. I will see you next Monday on WEMS Radio. Have a great week.